While the Five Nights at Freddy's games have been successful ever since their first entry, it is not through gameplay alone that they have gained the cult following they have. That was mostly due to the story, the lore of the games and the mysteries behind Freddy's. But another competitor for the reason why Fnaf's such a big deal has to be the characters, especially in recent times where animatronics have gained voices and personalities, and the main leads are no longer silent protagonists. Indeed, even when the story is uncertain, there is a full cast of colorful characters to cling on to, and they often are. But if we look at it game by game and story by story, who are the best characters? And more specifically for this video, who is the best character in every single Five Nights at Freddy's game? Well, that's what we're going through. We won't just be looking at the design or their amount of appearances, we're going to be taking in their impact in the game they are in, who they are, what they bring to the table, and how they change the presentation of Fnaf. Full disclosure, I am definitely going to be a little biased, but I made a strict rule to not let any character fill up 2 slots, and I am trying to look at it genuinely. I think you'll be surprised at least once we get to Pizzeria Simulator. So let's begin. Starting with Fnaf 1. Now, needless to say, the Fnaf animatronics immediately made a big impression. They were carrying the franchise, and if they hadn't, Fnaf wouldn't have become the overnight sensation it was. The mysterious but creepy bots with their dazed, possessed looks. Foxy was certainly a favorite, as was the elusive Golden Freddy, or the Yellow Bear. But there's no denying that the best character in the game, and the one with a true character, was a voice on a telephone. A former worker at Freddy's who knows the ropes and tells you how to survive your new job while assuaging your fears. The lovingly monikered Phone Guy. Phone Guy works as your tutorial, explaining a bit of backstory and the circumstances of the business while telling you how to survive the night. He's been here a long time, evident from his phoned-in assurances, but clear knowledge about the pizzeria.
Now, that might sound bad, I know, but there's really nothing to worry about. The animatronic characters here do get a bit quirky at night, but do I blame them? No. If I were forced to sing those same stupid songs for 20 years and I never got a bath, I'd probably be a bit irritable at night too.
Phone Guy is clearly nervous. He rambles and fumbles his words even while he's playing down the danger, making it a little unclear whether he's doing so to comfort you, so you don't panic and wind up getting yourself killed, or because there's a contractual obligation forcing him to do so. He makes it clear from the waiver that it's something Freddy's would do. It is through the Phone Guy that we learn about the animatronics and the company, and what's going to happen to us if we fail our job. Not just the company cover-ups, but what will happen if we get caught by the bots. On night 4, Phone Guy comes on the phone especially shaken, and we get to hear his final words and final moments before the animatronics catch him, giving us a harsh wake-up call for how dangerous Freddy's is.
Hey, do me a favor. Maybe sometime you could check inside those suits in the back room. I'm going to try to hold out until someone checks. Maybe it won't be so bad. Yeah, I always wondered what was in all those empty heads back there. You know. Oh no.
Sure, we can get caught and it's game over, but it's not game over for Phone Guy. He's gone. And that turns his small role as an instructor into something a whole lot bigger and a lot more impactful. Let me put it this way, Phone Guy is the only character who dies who we get to know about and care about. Think about it, many of the others are silent characters who we get glimpses of, but in these phone calls, we get to know a lot about Phone Guy. We don't know his history or his tragic backstory here, but we get his vibe, his personality, his anxiousness, and then we witness his death. We hear about missing children and lost souls, but they died a long time ago. This is the one we just lost. The one who sounds like he's there until he's gone, and then you realize his time ran out last week. And what's worse is how ominous it is, the finality and acceptance. There is a reason why so many fans hung on to that check the back room line. A reason why there were so many stories written surrounding the same scenario. Mike going to check the back room and it already being cleaned up. Because it likely was. Because while the tape says Phone Guy was there from the week before us, who knows? Maybe it was a little longer. Even if it wasn't, Freddy's works fast. They make people disappear, and Phone Guy, your only lifeline, is gone. You are the last one who heard from him, and nobody will ever find him. There is an eerie horror element there that perfectly encapsulates what Fnaf was striving to be. He is what happens when you fail. He is the one who does this countless times, and yet all it takes is one bad night. He is resigned to his fate because he knows what's about to happen, and knows there is no fighting it. Phone Guy is the best character in FNAF 1, not just because he is a pretty nicely fleshed out character, but because of his role in the story. He is the embodiment of what happens to those who work at Freddy's. It's one thing to be told what will happen, and another to have it happen before your eyes, or through your speaker. He is the best character in FNAF 1. He is really the only character in FNAF 1. So moving on to FNAF 2, the cast of animatronics opens up significantly. Familiar faces are withered and replaced with glossy and new replacements, and the Phone Guy returns, as the game is a prequel to the original. We even get to learn about the murderer himself, known as the Purple Guy, through different minigames, which also show more of the histories of Freddy's. But there is one looming figure that steals the spotlight this time, and it is the puppet. This isn't just bias, there's no doubt that the monochrome marionette steals the show when it comes to FNAF 2, whether it be its uncanny design, its unique if frustrating mechanics, or its importance to the greater lore. Let's go through one at a time. First, the design. FNAF 2 decided to up the ante by adding in the withered animatronics, broken beyond repair with gutted faces and effective stare-down techniques. Then there's Balloon Boy with his big ol' eyes and goofy, toothy smile. Mangle, the broken remains of what used to be Toy Foxy, is also very intimidating with how contorted its body is. And then you have this random 7-foot-tall sock monkey jack-in-a-box doing its best impression of Slender Man, save with a big old smile and, shockingly enough, angry eyes when it gets jump-scared, making it the first animatronic who successfully emotes as well. It is unsettling, but also very eye-catching, very noticeable, towing the line between creepy and... okay, it's very creepy, but I find it cute. Of course, I also think Innard's kind of cute, so your mileage may vary. As for the mechanics, the puppet has the special honor of having its own completely separate mechanics. That is, instead of wandering towards your office and you having to keep it out, they're kept at bay with the music box that you have to keep wound, just increasing the creepy factor. And while this mechanic isn't necessarily fun, having to babysit the puppet to keep it from killing you, it does at least stand out. It can't even be altered in the custom night, it's always there, always watching. Just like our beloved Phone Guy says.
I'll be honest, I never liked that puppet thing. It's always thinking, and it can go anywhere.
And this ties neatly into the story, as the puppet is revealed to be inevitably intertwined with the tragedy of Freddy's. Just sticking to FNAF 2 itself, because that's the game we're showcasing here, the puppet is not only revealed to be the one who put the souls of the dead children into the animatronic bodies, leading to the haunted animatronics, but it is also shown guiding them in the Save Them minigame, telling Freddy to follow it, telling him to save them, likely the next lot of deceased children, but he can't. We also see the puppet's backstory, and this is confirmed later to be it, of being a crying child outside of the restaurant who was murdered by a man in a purple car. The recently introduced purple-hued kitty strangler. In one game, we get the puppet introduced as a former victim who not only brought back the others, but was also the guiding and driving force behind them, making the puppet important in a way that no other previous animatronic had been. It was a clear message. Watch out for this one. And because of this, I think it's pretty clear that the puppet is the best character in FNAF 2. It came springing its way into the franchise, smacked us in the face with its big porcelain grin, and then infected our minds with theories about a strange, slender puppet master working the bots against us. Thanks, I hate it. I love it. I hate to love it, and I die for it. And here it is in cute, tiny baby plush form. But let's not get sidetracked. On to FNAF 3. And I think this one won't be contested, because even though we have the return of Phone Guy and the new totally rad phone dude, there's a singular looming threat that cannot be ignored. A human in a prison of rotten flesh and moldy fabric, mummified and free from its tomb to be let loose in the building where you are working. This is Springtrap, and he's the final mistake of the murderer. We get the story delivered to us through the minigames. The Purple Man was the murderer of the children, and he wore a suit known as a Springlock suit as a disguise to lure them away before ending their lives. One that resembled Bonnie. Now, Springlock suits are actually dual-purpose suits. They can function as typical animatronics, or using the spring locks, the endoskeleton can be compressed into place to allow a human to wear the suit and perform in it. But there's a risk in doing this, known forebodingly as a springlock failure, something we get to witness firsthand. One night, the Purple Man returned to destroy the animatronics, unaware that it would release their tormented souls. Cornered in the back room, he climbed into his suit to save himself, only to have the spring locks fail and the metal endoskeleton set back into place, crushing the Purple Man inside. And there he remained, and here he is shuffling around in his rabbit-sized coffin. It's only fitting that the murderer behind all of the death and decay at Freddy's shows up not as some normal guy, but instead as a hideous visual reminder of his crimes. And getting to see it and knowing what it does is utterly gruesome. He still moves like a limping human, hunting you through the halls, crawling through the vents, groaning and moaning as he makes his way to the office. He's intimidating in a way the others weren't, even as the only animatronic. And that's only intensified by the few brief screens where we can catch a glimpse inside of his suit and see the corpse still skewered inside. It's revolting in the best ways. I don't think I have to go on much further. Springtrap is the best character in Fnaf 3, hands down, and it's not even a fair comparison. He may not say a word, but his presence alone has become so iconic for Fnaf that he's practically the poster boy, and there's a reason for that. The best character doesn't have to be the most virtuous or heroic, or even emotionally deep character. The best is simply the one who works the best in the game, and it's clear that the star of Fnaf 3 would be the best. Springtrap doesn't fail us, unlike the dozens and dozens of Springlocks that have currently made a home deeply embedded in the mushy remains of his flesh. And after being built up for 2 games as this vicious monster, this was the perfect portrayal. On to Fnaf 4, and we hit a pretty peculiar bump in the road. See, Fnaf 4 is a weird case because despite it having a very domestic story compared to the other Fnaf games, the characters are a little on the light side. That is, our main character, who we get to see the life of, is yet, again, an entirely silent protagonist, and we don't see much from him except him crying as the world around him bullies him. And the world around him is made up of nothing but bullies and scary monsters. And lifeless side characters. It'll come to no surprise that this kid is known only as the Crying Child. The Crying Child is by default the best character in the game, but it's less due to his characterization, as all we know about him is that he is in a constant state of misery, but the sympathy we feel towards him. The Crying Child is a boy who fears the animatronics at the diner and yet still finds himself back there almost on the daily, either crying under the tables, hiding from the oversized bear and bunny duo, or screaming in the back room that he's been locked into by his older brother. But it's not just at Freddy's. Kids outside talk to him dismissively and taunt him, and at home he has to deal with a barrage of cruel pranks at his brother's hand, and even likely destroying his toys. But the Crying Child does have one friend, his talking Dreadbear plush, who gives him lines of encouragement such as, "He left without you. He knows that you hate it here. He hates you," and warning him that his brother's hiding nearby, preparing to scare him, without telling him where he is. Needless to say, his special friend is less of a source of comfort and is instead an ominous, omnipotent figure who just seems as detached as everyone else. From every angle, this poor Crying Child is broken down by the world, and unfortunately there is no happy ending. On the day of his birthday, his brother and his friends decide on yet another prank, this one involving shoving his face into the mouth of the Dreadbear animatronic mounted on stage, where something goes wrong and the animatronic bites down on his head. We get a brief epilogue with his plush promising to put him back together, but it still ends with the boy fading away, drowning in his own tears. We don't even know his name. We're on fan and name number 3 now, but Fnaf 4 does succeed in making you feel sorry for him, to the point where when his fate is sealed, we actually do feel the loss. And for that, he is the best character in Fnaf 4. But it wasn't much of a competition. Now, Fnaf World is an interesting case. On the surface, the game seems to be a fun spin-off RPG where you play cutesy versions of the animatronics going on a magical adventure. And that is sort of the premise. As in typical Fnaf fashion, there's always a darker truth hiding beneath the veneer. Fnaf World is actually about a group of spirits trying to live in a blissful afterlife, only for the purple cloud to seep in through the cracks and corrupt their idyllic world. Under the instruction of Dreadbear, they try to glitch out of the system to fix things for good. And since all of the characters are interchangeable, there's really only one star of the game, and it's not you. It's Dreadbear himself. Taking the image of what might be your plush friend from the last game, but a lot less apathetic, Dreadbear acts like a friendly host on the surface, but once you get past the surface, he opens up, blunt and serious, and leads you into completing tasks that seemingly affect the outside world. There's not too much to read off of Dreadbear save this double dynamic. Assumedly, Dreadbear is someone who can put on a bright face to play along with their games, only to drop the act when there's actual danger involved, making him significantly more complicated than expected. And though we still don't know a whole lot about him, he stands out as a true main character of Fnaf World, a game that is just a game made by the children, and him the host, the instructor, and the guide. But like I said, not much else can be said. A sharp contrast from the next character we will be talking about. Sister Location was a major step forward for the animatronic characterization, not just because of the game's story, which was much more upfront and center, with us actively playing through it instead of just seeing it through minigames, but because the animatronics were now given voices, and with them they got a ton of personality. I could go on about the elegant and sultry Ballora, or the maniacal Funtime Freddy, who rapidly became a fan favorite and is still extremely popular. If based off personality alone, Funtime Freddy might have taken the cake, but he wasn't the best. No, the best was saved again for the star of the show, Circus Baby, an enormous clown with a cutesy design that looks like it would fit something half of her size. Baby's painted-on smile and plated features make her both look somewhat approachable while being overwhelmingly cold and inhuman, something that fits her personality to a T. At first, the soft-spoken Baby seems to be a sharp contrast from the rest of her bloodthirsty bandmates. She offers a helping hand, giving you tips to keep you alive even when it seems like even the employee hand unit helper wants you dead. She tells you about herself, confides in you like she's beginning to trust you, even confessing about her dark past, where she unknowingly attacked a child, revealing herself to be yet another tragic figure dealt a bad hand at the hands of the Purple Man and the company he helped create. She's different. And she is, because Circus Baby is in fact one of the most cunning and manipulative characters throughout the entirety of the series, rivaling even the Purple Man and even managing to keep up a better facade on the whole. Baby plies you with a sob story and eases you into a false sense of security by drip-feeding information in a way that makes her look like the victim.
I still hear her sometimes. Why did that happen?
Especially when it comes to how the facility treats its animatronics, as there's some obvious neglect and cruelty in the constant needless electrocution, and that's not even covering the scooper. But Baby is more than willing to dish out exactly what she takes, but does so thoughtfully. She bides her time throughout the nights, getting everything into place before putting her escape plan into motion. The mask only slips on night 4 when she is unusually harsh and bitter, taunting the protagonist and letting them sit in a springlock suit as they're harassed by mini-Renas.
You're inside something that came from my old pizzeria. I don't think it was ever used. Too dangerous. It's just big enough for one person to fit inside. But just barely.
This could have killed them and ruined the plan, and that goes to show how much darkness really exists in Baby. She knows this doesn't benefit her, but she can't stop herself from doing it, just because it feels good to lash out at someone else. And yet, night 5 comes around and she's back on stage, figuratively. She's in parts and service, seemingly, but she's putting on a sweet, sad voice, lamenting all the badness inside of her, how wrong she is, and making the selfless decision to sacrifice her body so that she may save what is good about herself. Which is, of course, a huge lie. She's not even in the body, but following you around in an amalgam of her bandmates that she steers. Also that she can get you into the scooping room. The entire game is an elaborate ply by Circus Baby and her band to whittle you down and steal your body for their insane escape plan, and she's the ringleader. And that's what makes Baby so good, because the truth is, there actually is a tragic backstory involved here. She was the daughter of the Purple Man William Afton, who died at the hands of the animatronics he built to kill kids. Then she became one, was shocked and broken apart on the regular, and tricked out to all the nearby restaurants to kill as many kids as they could stuff in Funtime Freddy's Jelly Belly stomach tank. It's crystal clear why Baby is like this. She's not just evil for evil's sake. She was built to be like this. Life broke her into this. But that doesn't change what she does and how effectively she does it, creating one of FNAF's best villains, even if her role only lasted a singular game. I could go on all night about Circus Baby. I have talked about her countless times, the rise and fall of Circus Baby, how she had so much potential, why she was so good in Sister Location, and I won't spend any longer reiterating it here, but I will say that there's no contest. Circus Baby is the best character in Sister Location, and in Sister Location, one of the best written characters in all of Five Nights at Freddy's. But you probably knew I was going to say that. Here's one you probably didn't know I was going to say. Pizzeria Simulator is a game I have a lot of thoughts about. Some things I really like, some things I don't, and they pretty much can be summed up by the simulator and the office gameplay. Some feelings about the story too, but that's not important. What is important is that the best character in Pizzeria Simulator is Henry. Now you might be shocked to see Henry here considering my mixed feelings on how he has been handled. Not too different from my feelings on the game itself, actually. While I have some thoughts about how Henry is portrayed and specifically his sudden addition to the plot, there's no denying that Henry is the most impactful and well-written character in Pizzeria Simulator, and a lot of that comes from his grand speech at the end of the game. Henry is originally presented like Phone Guy as a voice on a tape player instructing you on what you need to do, and only reveals himself as an actual player in the story at the end of the game, where he interrupts Baby to reveal that, in sharp contrast to the last game, this game has all been an elaborate plan by him to fool the animatronics into coming to the pizzeria he built exclusively to burn them, with a maze of sounds and smells to lure them in, trap them, and then hold them as all of what remains of Freddy's is burnt to ashes. He explains this all during the speech, along with him being the father of the puppet and former friends with Will, confirmed as business partner elsewhere. This speech wraps up some of the loose ends before the big finale. And though it wasn't exactly the finale, there was a lot of impact in the suddenness of the speech and the tearing down of the former villains, who notably all have issues with keeping their mouths shut. It does feel rewarding after Sister Location's last-minute reveal that you were effectively doomed. By this point, William Afton has fooled the world. He got away with his crimes over and over again, and even when he was punished, being sealed in Springtrap, he pretty much got up and walked away, and he was fine with becoming the monster he did. The speech is the one time in the series where the Purple Man truly gets his comeuppance, where he isn't somehow actually winning. This speech is a big screw you to the two long-winded menace manipulators of FNAF, where they both got cut down to size, to the point where William himself rendered utterly speechless. He doesn't have a thing to say, though also the mic was cut out. And for a brief moment, Henry was the player stand-in to right the wrongs and knock him down a peg, and be the hero to finally stop Freddy's madness, even if it continued to grow and leak out in various ways. And because of that, because of what he did in this game specifically, he is the best character in Pizzeria Simulator. Even if it may have come at the expense of someone else. Rip 3 of the former best characters and Funtime Freddy's intestines. Now on to Ultimate Custom Night. Ultimate Custom Night is an especially difficult game to pinpoint a best character for because it has a lot of animatronics and many of them get voices for the first time, giving them their first real characterizations. So after weighing that and trying to figure out a way to balance it out, I actually made a sort of shocking, non-shocking decision, and that is that the best character is Mr. Hippo, with Toy Freddy a close second. See, while a joke character with long-winded speeches, Mr. Hippo has a special place as taking a character who really has nothing, no gimmicks, who was bland and forgettable even in his mediocre band, and turning him into a beloved character, one framed as a rambly gentleman who enjoys sitting by the park with his best buddy Orville, but is somewhat aware that that's not actually what's happening. Mr. Hippo is friendly and caring, but extremely absent-minded, and will just wander around the point aimlessly. But that's pretty neat, makes him special, and even establishes an adorable friendship with other uncharacterized character Orville the elephant. This is also why I believe Toy Freddy is a close second, because the game took him from a character without one to having one. Though unlike Mr. Hippo, Toy Freddy has more joke characterization. While Mr. Hippo's joke is his long-windedness, it feels a little more authentic, less like a nudge nudge wink wink, you know, gamers, am I right? And instead more fitting. It doesn't knock on the fourth wall to be effective. Plus, there's also sort of this melancholy feel that comes from the revelation that Mr. Hippo is aware that his stories about him and Orville might not entirely be accurate. He seems to shrug it off as meaning nothing at all, but in a way it does. Maybe Mr. Hippo's just yanking our chain, but that doesn't seem to be the case. A windbag, yes. A liar, no. Someone lost in stories of memories that never happened to escape the endless limbo of being a puppet to an angry soul that refuses to let anyone move on? Much more likely and much more fitting. Plus, he's just a total mood. I'm not sure what mood it is, but it's there. Now on to Help Wanted, and we hit another snag. See, Help Wanted is a hard one to put a finger on. There is a story, but the game itself is sort of a compilation of past games and new minigames which, while showing off some of the animatronics in whole new ways, doesn't tend to focus on any one more than the others. I have a soft spot for Ennard's appearance, but it's hard to justify that as being anything near a big character role. So the medal would have to go to Tape Girl, right? The stand-in for the phone guy? Well, not exactly. Tape Girl lacks some of the finesse that Phone Guy had, being more of a narrator than even him, and the ominous story of Jeremy applies more to Jeremy than her. So all of this combined, I think that there's only one option. The best character in Help Wanted is Glitch Trap. Glitch Trap, also known as the Anomaly, is this kooky, coked-out rabbit that is clearly just a guy in a suit. You can tell from his generous thighs and uncomfortably human-like hands. He starts to appear the further you get into the game, and then slowly creeps closer and closer, growing more solid and solid. All the while, Tape Girl is telling us the story of Jeremy, who saw this anomaly and ended up, by all accounts, slicing his own face off. We don't need that context to know that there's something wrong about this rabbit, but it certainly helps to give a punch to him. He's not just a creepy costume, he is willing to do something exceptionally disgusting. And even worse is that we're going off of just Help Wanted. There's no excess context, no hints towards backstories, no possible lore revelations. We don't know what it is when it shows up. We have suspicions, but it's not enough. Looks like William, well, it was supposed to be Spring Bonnie, but is dead silent in contrast to his last appearance where he prattled on. Uncomfy. Glitch Trap is just uncomfy enough to steal the prize even with a phone gal in the mix. And though I don't consider it a spectacularly deep role, I think just the impact of this thing waving you down and dancing around in an unwholesome little Easter Bunny jig is enough to steal any spotlight. However, I decided to consider Curse of Dreadbear separate. It is a DLC for Help Wanted, but I felt like bringing it up. And adding that into the mix, the best character for Curse of Dreadbear would absolutely be Captain Foxy. While Foxy has voice lines before this, Captain Foxy in his spiffy captain coat and darling dark ride just gives a jolt of life into the character. Foxy the pirate always has been a popular character, but the pirate motif has always kind of been on the light side. As has Foxy's role in general. Sure, he's there and he does have a hook and eye patch, but it isn't until you see the ride's cartoonish branding of Foxy's character in-game that it really opens up how this character is supposed to be characterized in-universe. Captain Foxy isn't a Foxy haunted by a dead kid. Captain Foxy is the embodiment of what the character Foxy is supposed to be. And that's super neat. Now we move on to Fnaf AR, and we hit another snag. This snag, of course, happens to be that for some reason, I did not write this part of the script at all. I wrote about a paragraph and nothing more. So we're going to be doing this completely off script. So bear with me, if I sound a little rambly, that's why. So FNAF Special Delivery had the same thing going for it that Ultimate Custom Night did, where many of the characters got new voice lines and characterizations, Toy Freddy, in fact, went from a salty gamer to being sort of a dopey kind of guy in a cute, endearing sort of way. Friendly. It was cool. It kind of, in fact, saved Toy Freddy's character. But out of all the characters of FNAF AR, there is one who was absolutely changed by this experience, and that was Mangle. So Mangle's story is introduced in FNAF 2, and normally I wouldn't bring up FNAF 2, obviously, because I'm trying to focus on this game, but it's actually mentioned here as well. Mangle was part of Kids Cove and worked as Toy Foxy, but the kids kept ripping it apart, and the employees got tired of putting it back together, so they made it into a pull apart and put back together attraction. Or more specifically, stopped putting them back together and just tossed in some extra spare parts. Mangle has had this joke surrounding them about, are they male, are they female? And there's never been a clear-cut answer, until now. Ultimate Custom Night gave Mangle some lines, but this is the point. It's in this game that we realize something very interesting about Mangle.
Well, hello there, stranger. Well, hello there, victim. We can hear you. We can smell you.
Mangle is actually two souls in one body, or at least two personalities in one. There is Mangle, the sort of upbeat, in-denial character, leading the way, and then there's the secondary head, which seems a lot more cold, threatening, and sarcastic.
We are a perfect paragon of pleasing. We are a perfect paragon of perilous.
This is extremely interesting, because I don't think anyone was thinking whether they were he or she would end with, there's two of them. But more importantly for Mangle, this does something very interesting for their characterization. Mangle is portrayed as someone who is somewhat in denial. They talk about how beautiful they are, and how they want to make the player beautiful like them, and how they admire their time in the Kids Cove. Though as soon as they say that, their secondary voice chimes in,
This almost makes us yearn for the days of the Kids Cove. Never again. Never, never, ever, never.
Mangle is clearly severely traumatized from their time at Kids Cove, from being ripped apart and being put back together. So much so that they've put this facade on where they see themselves as being something wondrous and beautiful to cover up what they might actually feel about their broken state. The secondary head does not have the mask, literally and figuratively. It knows what they've been through. All of this is twisted and contorted Mangle's mind just as much as its body, making it very dangerous, but it's also hard to not feel bad for them, especially when they're crawling around the floor trying to get another piece that has fallen off.
Where did that piece go? Where is it?
And it's only during those times when something falls off when Mangle betrays that image of perfection and laments the fact that they're just constantly falling apart. It really is kinda sad, but it's also very creepy. Specifically Mangle's willingness to do this to something else. Mangle is the sort of character who you want to help, but because of how much of a threat they are, and because of how much of a threat they want to be, you could never get close to help them. And that adds so many more layers onto what was originally just a sad situation. It's not just sad anymore. It will rip apart your feelings and put them back together again in a whole new way. And now, since this is totally off script and I've been rambling, I'm going to leave it there and move back on track. On to Security Breach. So I know Security Breach was going to be a hard decision because this was the first game where the animatronics got a lot of expressed characterization, quirks, and were extremely talkative. For example, Glamrock Chica's struggle with her appetite and food addiction gives her enough depth that it makes the original Chica look like she has the personality of an uniced cupcake. And all of the characters were like this, well, except Monty. Monty must have ticked off a witch or something because from the moment he was introduced, he was cursed to slowly shuffle into the background, grunting out high protein as he went. But there are a lot of beloved characters who came out of this game. Roxanne Wolf, the prideful and cool but self-conscious Wolf, Sun, the excitable daycare attendant, and Moon, his demented counterpart, and even Vanessa, the whiny night guard with a dark secret. But after Admittedly not much consideration, I will say that the best character in Security Breach, the one with the most filled character, most complete story, the biggest impact on said story and game, is naturally Glamrock Freddy, the first Freddy to have such a major role in a Fnaf game. But what is it about Freddy that makes him so undeniably phastastic? Freddy's characterization can basically be summed up as a 6-foot-tall Rockstar-themed metal golden retriever. He's friendly, eager to please, easily impressed, though he may be laying it on a bit thick to be nice, and protective, willing to go through great lengths to protect a child he just met. And there is no trick this time. Freddy's not a twist villain. In fact, the only reason he is not hunting Gregory, the kid you play as, like the others, is because he winds up going into safe mode, which allows him to keep his own autonomy. To the point where in the game, he even questions his own identity when confronted with the endos that will become Glamrocks.
I have never been allowed in here before. This must be where I was born. Look at all the endos. They're all the same. Have I always been a Freddy? Am I Monty with a different shell? What if I am not the first Glamrock Freddy? Are there more of me at other pizzerias? Do we all feel the same? Am I special? If I am mass-produced, am I still art?
This is really the first and only time in the series where an animatronic even gets the chance to be existential, and that is because Freddy is sentient AI instead of haunted. Well, at least in the current game, he is.
I am not me.
Though on the flip side, Freddy's more than a little naive, and kinda goofy at times. Whether it be believing his friends won't hurt Gregory while they're breaking down doors, and under the control of the dancing rabbit serial killer, or believing the Pizzaplex is safe enough to leave you alone repeatedly, and, well...
A fountain is a decorative reservoir used for discharging water.
He's gotten a rep as a little bit of a himbo, but what's important is that as the game goes on, Freddy does seem to get better about this. He isn't perfect, but there is progression. And there would have been a lot more. Glamrock Freddy had an entire cut section where he would have been betrayed by his bandmates, shattered, and forced to turn against Gregory. Gregory then would have had to outrun his protector, who had been upgraded to the biggest threat in the Pizzaplex. There's so much we know about this, so many lines, but since we're discussing what's in the game, and it's not really fair to count it. But what we can count is the numerous times Freddy sacrifices himself. At the end of the game, despite it clearly hurting him, he tells Gregory to leave and never come back.
Do not return. It will never be safe. I will miss you.
He's trying to protect him. He tells him that he can't leave. Yet if you do the van ending, Freddy, who very much knows he's not going to last, still goes with him. In the fire escape ending, he sets fire to his own Pizzaplex and tackles Vanny off a building. And in both of the Vanny endings, he tries to square up with her and the mini staff bots only to be torn apart. Even the saving Vanny ending shows a sort of sacrifice, as after Vanny has torn him apart and done so many horrendous things, Freddy still encourages Gregory to go to her when she's been freed of control, showing that he holds no ill will. Despite him telling Gregory to kill her in another ending.
Get to the Phaser Blast booth. Use the security desk. Turn them against Vanny.
Yeah, Freddy's a little more complex than just the good guy, but it would take me ages to deconstruct that. Design-wise, Freddy has a very friendly and approachable design, with especially expressive eyes. All of the Glamrocks have good designs, so this is sort of a given, but Freddy's is definitely the softest of the group, and that works well for his role in the game. Gameplay-wise, Freddy is basically your car. You climb inside and steer him around the Pizzaplex until he runs out of gas, or battery. One of the most fun parts of Security Breach, sans the saving issue, is at the end of the game where Freddy's fully upgraded, and you and him search for secrets across the fully open Pizzaplex together. I know the decision to make Freddy the best is probably going to be contested, but on the whole, he does have the biggest story impact and the deepest character in Security Breach, and that's saying that with a huge chunk of his story missing. The focal point of his character arc being wiped from the game. He is a big softy Papa Bear in a series where the last friendly bot was Baby, and yet it really does work. He's a strong character, and that's good because, to be frank, he is single-handedly carrying the entire story on his back. But he's great at it. Now, like with Help Wanted, I am counting the DLC separate, but I think it's a lot more understandable decision in this case than like Curse of Dreadbear, because Ruin is pretty much an entirely new game. It's short, but it's almost longer than the runtime of Security Breach. Ruin was a tough decision. Initially, I was planning on giving the award for Best Character to Cassie, since she is a pretty cool character, a likable protagonist who we learn quite a bit about, who not only questions her surroundings, but shows sympathy towards the animatronics. Well, most of them. But after mulling it over, I realized that it didn't matter how rushed it was. A redemption arc was still a redemption arc, especially when framed for an already well-fleshed-out and beloved character. And because of that, the best character in Ruin is Roxanne Wolf. I know I'm only counting the content shown in the singular game, but it's hard to do so with Roxy since it carries over from Security Breach and into Help Wanted 2 so well. But we still get just enough of her that it doesn't matter that it's only this game that we're covering. Roxy is extremely insecure. She was built to be cool, to be beautiful, the best. And she has become self-aware of that, and because of such has become fixated on how she is presented. And once Gregory leads to the ruination of that image, she turns to masking herself and continuing to hunt him in the dark. Blinded, but a fierce predator nonetheless. She covers her face, she paints her claws, and she tries desperately to clean herself up, but she's trapped in the depths of the broken pizzaplex with no chance to ever be repaired. Even if she's found, she'll likely be replaced. But she doesn't give up. She holds herself together, and when she's not crying to herself, she's fighting tooth and nail to get back her lost eyes and fix her face. So it's a jarring surprise when, upon catching Cassie and realizing she's not her target, Roxy actually backs off. She's startled, even apologetic, and that makes her the only animatronic of the ruins who, upon realizing you're a kid, and the wrong kid, actually stops. Chica sees you and keeps going, Monty's a lost cause, Moon is very aggressive, and Sun puts you on maintenance duty. This is likely because of two reasons. Firstly, she doesn't seem to be under the influence of the security system remaining in the Pizzaplex, and also, she might have recognized the voice of the girl she grabbed. See, as revealed by Roxy herself while in safe mode under a forklift, the two have met before. Roxy performed at Cassie's birthday party, where no other children showed up, and apparently Cassie left an impression on Roxy, as she remembers even when her birthday was.
If I remember correctly, it is on the 11th. I remember because you are number 1, twice.
No wonder Roxy's her favorite, though likely she already was. But in a tragic twist of fate, Cassie is forced to put good old Roxy down while she is recounting with her. Roxy doesn't fight back, as safe mode has made her somewhat unaware of her situation, and she is shut down. The one fighting for so long is finally forced to rest. While this whole scene happens a bit quick and relies on exposition to get the two spawned across, it certainly softens Roxy up considerably. But this isn't her redemption. No, Roxy's redemption comes a little later when Cassie is attacked by a deranged Indo, possibly in a moldy suit, who's been catfishing her. This Indo, the Mimic, is a greater threat than any of the ones she's encountered and is about to strike when Roxy races in to save the day. Having somehow woken up and came all the way down here to find her, Roxy tells her to run and begins to fight the Mimic with all she has. And from the audio in-game, when it's isolated, it's very likely that she loses this fight. But the fact that she went from being so filled with rage and anger, consumed by how she looks now and wanting to fix herself, to willingly throwing herself into a fight with some random threat to save a kid she really barely knows, is a tribute to who Roxy is. And it's not just because the Mimic sounds like Gregory, because the second she gets her hands on it, she knows it's not Gregory. Because when she speaks to Cassie, telling her to run, it sounds like she's out of safe mode.
Cassie, get out of here! Run!
She is doing this out of her own volition, and it doesn't matter if she wins, she just became 100% cooler. And that's the thing about Roxy's role in Ruin. It managed to take a fan-favorite character who by all accounts had so much of herself and her story cut in Security Breach, and managed to make this full story of her remorse, repentance, and redemption, making Roxy the highlight of Ruin. Because you don't need Security Breach and Help Wanted 2, really. Just seeing this would have made her a favorite for sure. But speaking of Help Wanted 2, there is a game that adds more meat to a ton of characters. Even Circus Baby embraces her roots in this one, and Roxy has a great showing. But there's no denying that for me at least, one character came out on top. Well, two characters, technically, and that's the daycare attendant jester, Sun and Moon. Now, being such a big and obvious Sunny Moon stan as I am, you might be surprised to see them appearing this far down the list. But there's a reason for that, and that's because of all their appearances, this is absolutely the best one. A little comparison time between Security Breach and Ruin, Sun's time is a little short, and seems to just portray him as an energetic but anxious individual, afraid of nap time and of unleashing his menacing gremlin side, Moon. He and Moon both have great designs, somewhere between uncomfy and comfort character, and some nearly iconic scenes. But Help Wanted To is where Sun is opened up a little more and is revealed to, yes, be energetic and anxious, but also fussy, sassy, sardonic, and a bit of a perfectionist. Needless to say, this is where Sun goes from good to great.
The totally awesome rad round! Chop chop! Googly eyes. Oh, don't eat the crafts. That is how you get ulcers. Okay, we are going to learn a new word today. Indigestion. That's how you get it. You can stop throwing things now. Oh, that was only funny the first few times. Do it again, and you're taking a nap. All artistic works completed within the Pizzaplex are property of Fazbear Entertainment. Good job. The whole thing is one happy little accident. Oh, you are banned from the daycare. Whew. So bad. Whew. I should turn off the lights myself.
There's a lot of contextual characterization here, where you can read how burned out he is from working with children under the threat of his Mr. Hyde half. And it's crazy because this characterization really turns Sun into one of the most human of the animatronics, beyond even Freddy and Roxy, since he does seem a little more aware of everything. You see the mask slip and him putting it back on over and over again. But there's also the much more depressing implications. We get to see later on as a broken Sun sequesters himself in the abandoned daycare, hiding underneath a light and begging you to leave, and then defeatedly going along with your arts and crafts when you won't.
You shouldn't be here. Please, just leave me alone. You can make crafts, but then you need to go.
This is the point where Sun truly comes into his own, not as the friendly half of Moon, but as his own being struggling with the weight of holding Moon back. He's not half of a character. He is his own character. It's tragic and wonderful. And then there's Moon. While I say menace, I mean not only is Moon a cackling, relentless pursuer who will squeeze himself into any minigame he possibly can fit into, one with an excellent design, which goes for Sun too, but a creepy, uncanny disposition that's pretty effective, that's great for his place as the villain. But also apparently directly at their side, as Help Wanted To is the game where we get this giant lore hint story clue thing that shows that Moon is being puppeteered by Vanny. Meaning that not only does Help Wanted To show of this spectacular dichotomy of the two in one Uno duo, but it also weaves them into the greater narration in a way that, admittedly, has not been entirely explained yet, but signifies a greater importance than you would have expected from a compilation game, or from the daycare attendant. Let's get this straight, there was absolutely no way Sun and Moon weren't appearing on this list, but their appearances in Security Breach, while paving the way for how beloved they became, pales in comparison to how the showing in Help Wanted To builds them both up, both in Moon's sinister presence and Sun's enhanced personality. But I will resist the urge to continue going on about this guy because we've reached the most recent game and the last of the best characters. Into the Pit is an interesting game. I've said that at least 10 times now, perhaps, but in the sense that it's based off of one of the short stories from the Fazbear Fright series. Naturally, it's a lot more story-driven, focusing on a complete tale instead of just being part of the longer series. Now, if you've seen even the smallest glimpse of Into the Pit, you've probably recognized the towering, sharp-toothed, hideous rabbit that looks like a nightmare variant of Spring Bonnie. It's not only the face of the game, but practically the face of Fazbear Frights, being one of the most well-known threats from the books. But it is not the best character in Into the Pit. Granted, it is an extremely effective villain, don't get me wrong, but the best character aside from that, going off of the story impact as a whole, would be the main character, Oswald. See, Oswald is a special case. Oswald is what I consider to be the most fleshed out of the Fnaf protagonists. He's basically your average kid, but somehow average still makes him pretty unique. He has trouble with bullies, but he's not the expected outcast that nobody understands stereotype. He's still quick to make friends and is pretty outgoing. He's got a good head on his shoulders and a good heart, wanting to rescue the other children trapped at Freddy's, but not above fleeing in terror when cornered. It's much more realistic. The whole story hinges on Oswald's relationship with his father. After jumping into the haunted ball pit, Oswald accidentally lures out Spring Bonnie, who then kidnaps his father and replaces him, with only Oswald being able to see that it is not his dad. At first, he calls his mother and tries to get her help, and when that doesn't work, he goes in himself, clearly afraid, but both more afraid for his dad and scared of living in a house with Spring Bonnie always present. You would think that the point is that Oswald doesn't appreciate his dad and learns a lesson on morals and whatever, and in the book maybe a lot of Fazbear Frights books seem to have that honor thy parents moral beat, but the game isn't like that at all. Oswald doesn't take his father for granted, he's just realistically reacting to his situation. His father's out of work and the town is drying up, and both land Oswald in a situation where he's sitting around in an empty pizzeria most of the time, missing when his parents weren't struggling and he had more friends around. And it's easy to feel for him, especially since him catching Spring Bonnie's attention? Purely an accident. Sure, he seeks out the ball pit, but like who really thinks they're going to go play in a ball pit and warp into the 7th circle of hell? Oswald makes sense. His reasons for doing what he does make sense. And really, there's no situation where you think, why did he do X? There's always a good explanation. He's a curious sort who likes sketching, is good at arcade games, eagerly plays with any kid willing to offer, loves his cat, is afraid and doesn't want to die, but won't just sit around hiding until he does. He's a far cry from Mike's silent presence and even Gregory and Cassie's at times almost tropish behaviors. You don't go through the game living a story that happens to have you as someone. You're playing through Oswald's story. This is about him. He has clear-cut wants and desires, and stands, even as a kid, to be one of the only FNAF protagonists capable of effectively doing anything. Because what sells it for me is Oswald's willingness to throw hands. In a series where folks seldom fight off the animatronics, him straight up clocking Spring Bonnie isn't just impressive, it's admirable. He even gets chomped at the end and just takes it like a champ. Adrenaline's a hell of a thing. And even the timing makes perfect sense. When he punches Spring Bonnie at the end, that's after he's been dealing with him through the entire game, after he finds his father when he's just about to escape and almost gets caught. It is much more believable and serviceable to his arc that this is the moment when he clocks him. And it also goes against the absolutely horrible repeated trope of the villain pops out at the last minute and wins. You know, the one that we see everywhere. But that is all to say that Oswald is the best character of Into the Pit. And really, considering what the game is, it only makes sense that he is. And with him and that, we reach the end of the list. The spin-off games are a little too light, and 5 Laps at Freddy's and Secret of the Mimic aren't out yet, so this is our stop. I tried to be as subjective as possible. I wasn't, unfortunately, and honestly, I couldn't have truly been. One's opinion of what's best could be widely different from another's, especially in cases like Security Breach when there's a lot of favorite characters, or in Five Nights at Freddy's 3 since Phone Dude arguably has more overt characterization than Springtrap. Or even Help Wanted 2, which gives better looks at Roxy, DJ Music Man, and Helpy. I'm sure someone would have put Vanny as the best somewhere, but in my opinion, these were the best characters for each game, and I hope I at least explained why I think so. Anyway, thank you for watching. And see you in about a month when I try to convince you that this obscure character is actually the best thing in Secret of the Mimic. See you then!